I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Once upon a time, Disney released a film that would shape animation forever. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs debuted in 1937 as the first full-length animated feature film. It was hand-drawn, beautifully scored, and crafted with love. Generations of kids grew up with its songs, its characters, and its message of hope and kindness. The original was about innocence, true love, and the triumph of good over evil. It was a fairy tale in every sense. Now, nearly 90 years later, Disney tried to revive it, but the result has been anything but magical. The new Snow White remake, scheduled for 2025, has sparked massive backlash. The reaction has ranged from disappointment to outright anger. The internet is flooded with criticism. But one thing's for sure, people are not happy. What was supposed to be a nostalgic return has turned into one of Disney's most controversial projects. From casting decisions to modern rewrites, this movie has sparked a firestorm. So why does everyone hate the new Disney Snow White movie? Let's break it down. The original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs wasn't just another cartoon, it was a moment in history. When it came out back in 1937, people had never seen anything like it. It was Walt Disney's dream brought to life, and it blew audiences away. The animation felt magical, the music stuck with you, and the story touched people's hearts. This film built the Disney brand we know today. It changed what animated movies could be. Snow White herself was gentle and kind. She wasn't fighting with swords or leading armies, but her strength came from her heart. She was trusting and optimistic, and that's what made her special. Kids loved her sweet nature, and adults appreciated the amazing artistry behind the scenes. The film even got a special Oscar, 1 regular statue and 7 miniature ones, a tribute to the Seven Dwarfs. The songs? Timeless. Someday My Prince Will Come and Hi-Ho became instant hits. The dwarfs each had their own vibe. Grumpy, Dopey, Doc were memorable and funny. The evil queen, with her cold stare and poisonous apple, became the blueprint for every animated villain that followed. The whole movie had this charm and heart that connected with people on a deep level. For decades, that legacy stood strong. People loved it. When Disney announced a remake, fans hoped the studio would honor that magic. But instead, many feel like Disney lost sight of what made the original so loved. They didn't just remake the movie, they changed its soul. And to a lot of lifelong fans, that felt like a slap in the face. When Disney first said they were making a live-action version of Snow White, people didn't really know how to feel. Some were excited, hoping it would be a fresh, magical update to a classic story they grew up with. Others weren't so sure, especially after seeing how Disney's past remakes like Mulan and The Little Mermaid had been met with mixed reviews. Disney promised that this version of Snow White would be more modern, more empowering, and more in tune with today's world. But while the studio was talking about making a bold new statement, a lot of fans just wanted that nostalgic fairy tale feeling again. Things started to feel off when they revealed the changes. Snow White wasn't going to be dreaming about a prince anymore. The Seven Dwarfs were being reimagined in a completely different way. The overall tone of the movie seemed more serious, almost heavy, rather than light and magical like the original. Instead of enhancing the original story, it felt like Disney was rewriting it completely. And that's when the backlash started. As trailers and sneak peeks were released, those concerns only grew. The movie didn't seem fun or whimsical. It looked intense and maybe even a little preachy. People began asking, who is this movie really for? Is it meant to connect with a new generation? Or is it trying so hard to be modern that it's forgetting what made the original so special in the first place? When Disney announced that Rachel Zegler would be playing Snow White in the live-action remake, the internet lit up, and not all in a good way. Zegler, who had impressed many with her performance in West Side Story, is clearly talented. But even with her skills, some fans were left scratching their heads. In the original fairy tale, Snow White is famously described as having skin as white as snow. That detail wasn't just about looks, it was a symbolic part of the character, rooted in old European folklore. So, for a lot of people, this casting felt like a big departure from the source material. Now, to be fair, others saw this as a positive change. They felt it was time for stories like Snow White to reflect the real world better and to include a more diverse range of actors. To them, casting Zegler was a sign of progress, opening the door to new interpretations and letting more people see themselves in classic roles. But the conversation didn't stop there. Things got even more heated when she didn't seem to be a big fan of the story she was now leading. That didn't sit well with longtime fans who had grown up loving the classic film. They wanted the actress playing Snow White to actually respect and appreciate the character, not mock her or tear the story down. Then came the interviews. Ziegler made some bold statements that rubbed people the wrong way. She said the prince in the story was basically a stalker, and she called the whole tale outdated and in need of serious change. People felt like she was completely missing the point, and worse, disrespecting a role that means a lot to so many people. Instead of getting fans excited about the remake, her comments made them feel like she didn't even want to be part of it. As the film's promotion kicked off, that feeling of disconnect only got stronger. Fans weren't just questioning the casting anymore, they were wondering if the spirit of Snow White had been lost altogether. Another big issue that got people talking was what Disney decided to do with the Seven Dwarfs. In the original story, they weren't just part of the background, they were central to the plot and beloved by fans for their unique names, personalities, and the heart they brought to the movie. But when Disney revealed that they were going in a totally different direction with them, it sparked a lot of confusion and frustration. This time around, only one actor with dwarfism was reportedly cast. The rest of the group would be made up of a diverse mix of average height actors. But instead of feeling like progress, it ended up upsetting many people in the dwarf acting community. A lot of them felt like they were being pushed aside. Roles that could have given talented dwarf actors meaningful work were now going to people who didn't share that experience. For many fans, the original Seven Dwarfs weren't offensive. They were iconic. They weren't just there for comic relief, they were kind, loyal, and played a big part in Snow White's journey. Taking them out or drastically changing them felt like Disney was erasing something special, not improving it. Things got even more confusing when behind-the-scenes photos from the set started popping up online. The new characters didn't look anything like the Seven Dwarfs people knew. Some looked like they were just random travelers or extras from a completely different movie. Fans didn't know what to make of it. Who are these people supposed to be? Were they replacing the dwarfs? Were they even important to the story? Eventually, it was revealed that Disney had scrapped the original idea of using a mixed group of live-action actors. Instead, they decided to go back to using CGI for the dwarfs, digitally created characters that wouldn't be portrayed by real actors at all. For many, that felt like Disney was trying to quietly backtrack without admitting the change was unpopular. But by then, the damage had been done. Fans were frustrated, dwarf actors were angry, and audiences as a whole were left wondering why Disney felt the need to reinvent something that wasn't broken to begin with. It started to feel like Disney was making changes just to check boxes or avoid criticism, rather than to tell a better story. And that didn't sit well with audiences. One of the things that really shocked people about Disney's live-action Snow White was the massive budget. It was reported to cost around $209 million, which is a huge amount of money, especially for a remake of a simple fairy tale. With that kind of cash, fans were expecting something incredible. Magical sets, breathtaking special effects, and acting that would make the characters feel real and unforgettable. But once early clips and leaked footage started making the rounds online, the vibe was completely different. Instead of a visually stunning fantasy world, the sets looked kind of dull, like they were missing that Disney sparkle. Some even said they looked more like a theme park backdrop than a real movie production. The costumes didn't help either. They didn't feel like something out of a magical kingdom. They looked plain and surprisingly cheap for such a high-budget film. The supporting cast didn't exactly bring the magic either. Their performances were described as stiff and awkward, like they weren't quite sure what tone the movie was going for. With everyone seeming disconnected or unsure, the story felt flat, and the emotional core that usually makes Disney movies so memorable just wasn't there. People started to seriously question where all the money went. With a budget that high, more than many Marvel blockbusters, you'd think the film would look and feel amazing, but instead, it felt like a missed opportunity. Some fans even joked that the poisoned apple had more personality than the lead. Harsh, but it shows just how disappointed people were. And the movie has a rating of an overall 1.3, which is disappointing In the end, it wasn't just that the movie looked off or the acting felt weak. It was that it cost so much and still didn't deliver. This wasn't just a flop, it was an embarrassment. And the fact that Disney poured hundreds of millions into it made the whole thing even harder to watch. So, what do you think, chatters? Did Disney completely miss the mark with this remake? Whether you loved it, hated it, or couldn't even finish the trailer, we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to hit that like button if you think the original Snow White is still unbeatable, and subscribe for more.